Okay, so good day. So this will be my first example para malaman natin kung ang function ay may limit, okay, o wala. May dalawa tayong paraan para malaman natin kung limit exists on a function at a certain value of x o a certain approaching value of x. Una, gamit yung two-sided limits at yung ikalawa, if the denominator is approaching to zero, okay, o magiging zero. Yun ang paraan natin para malaman kung may limit yung ating function. We have example number 1. Limit of 1 over x to the fourth as x approaches 0. So ano mapapansin natin dito? If we assign 0 to the denominator x, so we're going to have a 0 denominator, 0. So therefore, we can directly write that for this function, limit does not exist. Okay? Dun sa ating kalawang halimbawa, we have limit of x squared minus 1 all over square of x plus 1 as x approaches negative 1. Bago natin sabihin that limit does not exist for this function, arrange muna natin o i-simplify muna natin yung ating rational function. Kasi we can factor out x squared minus 1 into the product of x plus 1 and x minus 1. Okay? Hindi ka agad i-assign kasi maaari itong mag-fall down dun sa ating indeterminate forms wherein we have 0 over 0 pero mangyayari baka naman pwedeng i-simplify kasi baka isipin nyo if we assign negative 1 to x or substitute this directly, we have negative 1 squared minus 1, negative 1 plus 1 squared. We have 0 on top and 0 doon sa ating denominator. So, this will be an indeterminate form. Pero i-check natin, baka naman limit exists. Okay? We can factor out the numerator into the product of x plus 1 and x minus 1. So, we have on top limit of x plus 1, x minus 1, we have x plus 1 squared, x approaches negative 1. Okay? So, pwede pang makancel yung x plus 1 on top at ganun din sa ilalim. So, the result is we have limit of x minus 1 over x plus 1 as x approaches negative 1. So, pag in-assign natin yung negative 1 sa x para makuha yung limit natin, we have negative 1 over negative 1 plus 1. We have 0 on top. Negative 2 on top. We have 0 at the denominator. Therefore, limit does not exist. Okay? Kahit indeterminate form kanina, pero na-simplify natin, hindi na siya indeterminate form but we have 0 denominator. Therefore, limit does not exist for example number 2. So, ano bang illustration nun? Ano bang equivalent graph of this function? I-graph natin para lalo nyo maintindihan na hindi talaga nag-exist yung limit of this function as x approaches negative 1. Graph tayo. Kunin natin yung what else? Ano ba? Asymptote. Okay? Yung vertical asymptote can be determined using by equating the denominator to 0. Kung natatandaan nyo, vertical asymptote can be determined by equating the denominators to 0. Therefore, x equals negative 1 is our vertical asymptote. For the horizontal asymptote, pag parehas ang degree on top ng x dun sa degree dun sa denominator, you're just going to determine the horizontal asymptote as y equals the coefficient on top and coefficient at the bottom. Ang coefficient ng x dito ay 1. Sa baba is also 1. Therefore, we have horizontal asymptote of 1. So, hindi tatama doon yung ating graph ng function na x minus 1 over x plus 1. So, we have here 1 and negative 1. So, we have vertical asymptote here. Meron tayo dito horizontal asymptote. Ito yung horizontal asymptote. Ito yung ating vertical asymptote. Okay. What else? Kunin natin yung x-intercept. X-intercept. Ibig sabihin, let y equal 0. If y is equal 0, so we have here, we have 0 equals x minus 1 over x plus 1. Transposing, this will become 0. So magiging 0 equals x minus 1, therefore x equals 1. Okay. So tatama siya sa 1, 0. 1, 0. 1, 0 here. For the... Tanggalin ko to. Para sa y-intercept. By the way, kaya mabilis na ako mag-solve ng ganito ay naituro ko na to sa general mathematics. Okay? To solve for the y-intercept, we let x equal 0. Let x equal 0. So, we have y equals ito. 0 si x. So, 0 minus 1 over 0 plus 1 equals negative 1. So, tatama siya sa 0, negative 1. So, dito, 0, negative 1 ito. So, therefore, ang graph ng ating function, pag-assign ka dito, pag ganito siya, parang graph din siya ng function na 1 over x. Pag ganito rin siya dito. So, meron ako ditong calculator, yung graphing calculator, para mapakita ko sa inyo kung equivalent. Okay. FX9860G2SD. Okay. So, natin. Exit muna. Ayan. So, display natin yung x minus 1 on top. Ito, fraction muna. X minus 1x minus 1. Sa baba is x plus 1. So, we have x plus 1. Then, we execute. So, we have here the graph. Okay? So, kung nakikita nyo, yan yung graph ng ating function. Katulad nung pagkakagraph ko dito. Okay? Now, anong ibig sabihin nito? Limit does not exist. Actually, may limit naman yung mga functions as x approaches 2, as x approaches negative 2, as x approaches 5, etc., etc. But when x is approaching to negative 1, so ito siya, no? Ito yung negative 1 natin. Mapapansin nyo, nawawala yung limit niya kasi yung ating function is approaching to negative infinity at sa taas naman approaching to positive infinity as x approaches negative 1. So, sasabi natin, limit does not exist. Okay? Walang limit siya dito pagpapalapit siya sa negative 1. Pero in other intervals of x, limit exists. Maliban lang as x approaches negative 1. As x approaches negative 1, limit does not exist. Okay? So, sana naintindihan nyo kung ano yung limit does not